This is the startling reality. The kitchen is the place that seniors spend the most time cleaning. Still, according to 3 out of 4, it never appears completely clean. Why? Because all of your hard work can be undone by 7 hidden clutter blunders. Take a moment to consider that. How many times have you scrubbed the floor, polished the sink, or wiped down the counters, only to feel let down afterwards? In actuality, dirt isn't necessarily the cause of a cluttered kitchen. Your area is silently crowded, and it's tranquilly stolen by the unseen habits and forgotten objects. Because of this, we're going to reveal the 7 clutter errors that, despite your best efforts, can ruin your kitchen today. This is where you enter the picture. Prior to delving into these 7 eye-opening errors, let's discuss a potent strategy that might elevate older citizens' voices on YouTube. We refer to it as the hype button. It's rapidly emerging as one of the most crucial strategies to support material created for individuals over 60, even if you haven't used it yet. By creating hype, you're not just promoting this video. You're also letting YouTube know that seniors should be acknowledged, seen, and honored. The best part is that you receive 3 complimentary hypes each week. You can therefore decide which videos are most important to you. By tapping it each time, you're elevating this message so that more people like you can find it. So don't just hit like before we continue. Don't only consider signing up. Now press that hype button. Although it only takes 2 seconds, the difference is significant. Imagine a community where millions of people can access your stage of life's perspectives, stories, and guidance, and where elders are not invisible online. Only when you give the movement your hype does it occur. We're working together to create a space where homes, kitchens, and lives beyond 60 can be valued rather than disregarded. Now, let's get started, so feel free to tap hype. Introducing Alma Ray, a 71-year-old retired nurse from Oregon who has always taken care in maintaining a tidy home. She had learned discipline, attention to detail, and the idea that cleanliness equated to caring from decades of working in the medical industry. The same was true in her kitchen. She swept her floors until they appeared immaculate, polished her wash basin until it reflected the sun, and cleansed her counters till they shone. Alma's kitchen appeared to be in perfect condition. However, there was always a strange feeling as she took a step back. Even with her efforts, the room still appeared packed and uneasy, as though cleaning alone would not make it genuinely pleasant. Every time her neighbors proposed getting coffee, Alma found herself hesitant. She liked their companionship, but a voice in the back of her head muttered that they would see the mess she was unable to control. It wasn't filth. There was more to it. The small stacks of papers on the counter, the partially occupied shelves that appeared full but haphazard, and the assortment of random items that lacked a designated location. Although each item appeared insignificant on its own when combined, they produced a silent burden that gave her the impression that her kitchen was never prepared for visitors. Many seniors will be familiar with her story. Kitchens are now used for more than just cooking as time goes on. They become into the focal point of the house and the backdrop for innumerable family moments. And those memories are frequently accompanied by objects that remain long after their usefulness has diminished. Every item has a burden for Alma, in addition to a story. She felt caught between embarrassment and pride due to the contrast between her pristine surfaces and the underlying chaos. Alma's trip is significant because of this. It has nothing to do with how often you mop or how vigorously you clean. It's about the little errors that, despite your best efforts, subtly give a kitchen a cluttered appearance. The 7 faults that can ruin even the cleanest room are revealed in Alma's story. You may finally design a kitchen that feels as inviting as it appears by using the tips she learned. The first error was the overabundance of wash basin accessories. The best illustration of how minor elements can subtly ruin a kitchen was Alma's wash basin. She polished her tap so it gleamed in the light, and wiped her counters until they were shiny. However, every time she took a step back, The area surrounding her washbasin took center stage for all the wrong reasons. The dishes weren't filthy. They were always cleaned and stored. It was the collection of objects that had accumulated throughout time. A row of half-empty cleaning bottles that never appeared to move. Rubber gloves hung awkwardly over the basin. 2 sponges in varying stages of wear, and 3 different soaps. It seemed realistic to her, with everything within reach. However, it produced a noisy, chaotic image that gave the impression that the entire kitchen was disorganized to anyone who happened to glance at it. The wash basin is the kitchen's visual focal point, as Elma and many other seniors realize when they take a step back and see things differently. You look at it innumerable times every day, and visitors look there first. Even if the rest of the room is immaculate, the impression is cluttered when clutter accumulates there. Even when several bottles, sponges, and utensils are spotlessly clean, the human eye automatically interprets them as disorder. It was a typical afternoon when she made her breakthrough. She noticed her reflection in the tap while cleaning the counters. Instead, she saw how packed the margins were, even though the shine should have been pleasing. Her hard work was up against the clutter, which consistently prevailed. Elma decided as a result, only keep things she actually uses on a regular basis. She reduced the system to a dependable brush kept in a basic holder and a single soap pump. Everything else, including gloves, extra sprays, and backup sponges, was stored in a basket beneath the sink so it would be accessible when needed, but hidden from view. With just 2 tidy things next to her wash basin, the change was instantaneous. The entire kitchen appeared more deliberate, tidy, and serene. The cleanliness of the kitchen was no longer dominated by the brilliance of the tap. One of the most frequent yet often ignored errors is this one. Many of us accumulate extras over time due to sales, habit, or the belief that we will need them soon. However, visual clutter from too many products in plain sight takes away the kitchen's sense of organization. Being less at the wash basin does not equate to being less clean. More peace is what it means. Examine your own wash basin at this moment. There's something sitting there. Over 2 or 3 things. If so, you might have discovered the exact cause of your kitchen's constant disarray. Leave your response in the comments section. Please, let us know how your wash basin is set up. And keep an eye out since the next error is significantly more complex. Even after you've cleaned your counters well, it still makes them appear cluttered. Overloading the countertop is the second error. Elma cherished her kitchen appliances. She had gathered them like awards throughout the years. Her kid insisted that she try an air fryer. She vowed to use a crock pot during the cold months. Even a heavy bread maker that had only been used twice, as well as a toaster oven from a holiday sale. At the time, each item had promised convenience and looked beneficial. However, they told a different narrative when arranged over her counters. They caused clutter rather than convenience. Elma's kitchen appeared cluttered and uneasy due to the appliances, even after she cleaned the counters until they were spotless. Many seniors fall into this trap. Although gadgets seem helpful, too many of them can produce what designers refer to as visual noise. The kitchen doesn't feel roomy anymore. Even when it's tidy, it feels crowded. While preparing tea one morning, Elma came to this realization. Her kettle appeared to be lost among all the other appliances when she placed it on the counter. What ought to have been a reassuring custom felt crammed into a congested setting. She made the decision to simplify. She wondered, what do I actually use every single day? Rather than, what might I use someday? The answer was simple. Her tea kettle, and sometimes her toaster. Everything else might be put away in a cupboard and only used when necessary. Rearranging took a few minutes, but the outcome was striking. The counters appeared clean, open, and welcoming, even with just her kettle on display. Her morning tea no longer seemed crowded between devices, but rather calm for the first time. There was more to the transformation than appearances. It changed her attitude. She was no longer reminded of incomplete recipes or wasted purchases when she entered the kitchen. Rather, it felt more like a place that fit her current existence than the one she had in mind when she first started purchasing technology. This is important, especially for elders. Less reaching, less bending, and less annoyance result from a more composed counter. Additionally, guests will notice the home's warmth rather than the disarray of the appliances. Countertop overload is a cunning error because of this. At first glance, it doesn't appear to be clutter. They are, after all, practical objects. However, having too many visible devices subtly undermines your efforts. Elma found that convenience did not equate to less on the counter. It signified greater clarity, comfort, and mental tranquility. Now, take a moment to look at your personal counters. What is the permanent resident of that appliance? Do you keep it out of habit, or do you use it every day? Post it in the comments section. A number of people in the same situation will surprise you. And remain with us because the following error is one that silently transforms your shelves into a time capsule while hiding behind cupboard doors. The third error is the time capsule in the pantry. The tale of Elma's pantry covered many decades. Behind the carefully locked doors were rows of spices that had long since lost their flavor, jars of sauces purchased on sale but never opened, and cans from forgotten supermarket excursions. Although it appeared full and plentiful on the outside, it was actually a time capsule of the past. She discovered a tin of soup that had been there when her grandson was still in nappies, as well as 2 similar jars of nutmeg that were both expired. The shelves were laden with clutter, masquerading as food, not with nourishment. One of the most frequent kitchen errors is to mistake a stocked pantry for a functional one. A pantry may appear crowded and well-stocked. In reality, though, it causes tension. It gets more difficult to locate what you truly need when there are too many duplicate or expired things. Every time Elma tried to cook, it ended in frustration. The clutter cycle would continue as she shuffled through rows of forgotten boxes before giving up and purchasing something new. Her decision to entirely empty one shelf marked a turning point. She could see the truth now that everything was laid out on the table. Almost half of it was useless. Stale crackers and stale soups and spices that had turned to dust. It was unexpectedly freeing to let go. Not every item that was thrown away was a loss. It was making room for the here and now. What was left appeared lighter and friendlier when it was arranged by type, with grains and soups together, and spices neatly placed. Her pantry was no longer overflowing. It muttered, ready to serve. This error can be very taxing for senior citizens. A messy pantry frequently results in lost energy and money, as well as potential safety hazards when expired food is left out for an extended period of time. Not only does clearing it improve the appearance of the shelves, it facilitates day-to-day living. Digging through mounds will no longer require stooping. You can stop wondering if a jar is still good. No more feeling embarrassed when a visitor notices anything that is much past its expiration date. A pantry isn't supposed to be a museum, Elma realized. It is intended to assist modern living. She transformed an area of frustration into one of clarity by getting rid of things that no longer benefited her. She no longer dreaded entering the pantry door, and cooking became easier. It's your time now. Which item in your pantry is the oldest that you have ever found? Was there a jar of jam in the back, a box of pasta, or a spice? Post it in the comment section. You'll be shocked to learn how widespread this error is. And keep an eye out because the following error will make us chuckle till the cabinet door opens and everything falls out. The fourth error is the avalanche of plastic. There was a cabinet in her kitchen that Elma hated. It wasn't the junk drawer or the spice rack. It was the cabinet for containers. It was the same narrative each time she opened the door. Mismatched tubs that are on the verge of collapse. There were broken lids jammed backward, and plastic spilt into the floor in a tidal wave. With her daughter, she would frequently make jokes about it, such as I get more exercise picking up these containers than I do cooking. However, beneath the humor was aggravation. A straightforward task, like finding a container to hold leftovers, could become a 10-minute battle with toppling rack. Her kitchen didn't feel hectic because of this mess. It sapped her vitality. What ought to have been a simple chore turned into a stressful one. Elma is not alone either. One of the largest hidden clutter traps for a lot of seniors is plastic containers. They accumulate over time. Old favorites that ought to have been retired long ago, lids without partners, microwave warped containers, and margarine tubs kept just in case. They enter stealthily. However, the cabinet quickly turns into a cacophonous avalanche zone. Elma's decision to finally say enough was the pivotal moment. She took out each container and arranged them on the counter. Over 30 mismatched parts, the most of which she hadn't used in years, made for an overwhelming sight. But she gained clarity when she saw everything in one place. She combined bases and lids. Additionally, a container went straight to the recycling bin if it was missing its partner. Items that were soiled, deformed, or cracked came next. After she was done, she had a tidy, basic set of containers that stacked neatly, all of which were in working order. The change happened instantly. She was able to open the cupboard without anticipating a hit for the first time in decades. She found calm in what used to be worry. The process of preserving leftovers, for example, became more seamless and peaceful. Additionally, her kitchen appeared more purposeful straight away, as if each item had a designated spot. Despite its seemingly insignificant nature, this error undermines day-to-day living. Finding the correct lid or constantly stooping to pick up fallen tubs can be tiring, especially for elderly people. Time, effort, and dignity are all stolen by the mess. However, after taking action, Elma found that abundance was not nearly as fulfilling as simplicity. It's your time now. Does anyone else own an avalanche cabinet made of plastic? If that's you, type me in the comments. You're not alone, so don't worry. Everybody has experienced it. And keep an eye out because the next error is even more cunning. It does not fall to the ground. It sits silently on your counters and seats, hiding in plain sight. The chair and counter collector is the fifth mistake. After cleaning, Elma's kitchen was always immaculate. The floor was swept, the worktop sparkled, and the wash basin gleaming. However, something still seemed strange when she took a step back. It was not dishes or filth that were at blame. Her counters and chairs were involved. They had evolved into quiet storage areas over time, where she put items she had promised herself she would take care of later. Carefully folded towels covered one chair, which was awaiting transport to the linen cupboard. Several times, grocery bags were slouched against a stool, partially unpacked, because the person was too exhausted to continue, and another had a stack of unopened mail on top. Because it doesn't first feel like clutter, this type of clutter is cunning. The towels are clean. Mail is crucial. At least temporarily, grocery bags belong in the kitchen. However, these commonplace objects that sit on chairs or on the edge of counters give the impression that something is left undone. Those little mounds give the kitchen a disorganized, uneasy appearance, regardless of how well kept the rest of the space is. It turned into a cycle for Elma. After doing a thorough cleaning, she would leave one item on the chair, and by the next day, there were dozens. The breakthrough occurred when Elma entered her kitchen one morning, prepared to have coffee, and discovered that she could no longer even see her chairs. The gleaming sink and immaculate worktops were contending with heaps that muttered, "Something's not finished." Layers of clutter had covered them up. She posed a challenging inquiry to herself. How long has it been since anyone actually sat there? In actuality, the chairs were no longer seats but bookcases. She made the decision to clear her space at that point. Refusing to allow them to be storage areas, she cleared every single chair and counter surface. Towels arrived at their location immediately. Grocery bags were unpacked and recycled that same day, and mail was sorted right away. There was a noticeable difference. The kitchen suddenly appeared purposeful and well kept, with the counters clear and the chairs free of clutter. Instead of seeing a room full with reminders of undone tasks, guests could enter and find a warm and inviting space. The emotional change was even more pronounced for Elma. The guilt of seeing mounds awaiting her care had left her. Rather, she relished her kitchen as it was intended to be, a space for gathering, eating, and relaxing. Seniors frequently make this error because their energy levels fluctuate and multitasking is more difficult than it used to be. Setting things aside for the time being seems innocuous, but eventually those little stacks detract from the beauty of your labors. Eliminating them not only makes your kitchen seem better, but it also gives you the peace you deserve. Does your kitchen have a catch-all chair? What typically ends up there? Grocery bags, coats, and mail. Post it in the comment section. You're not by yourself. And keep an eye out, since the next error is significantly more complex. It's not on your counter or chair. Disguised as food, it lurks in your cupboard and refrigerator. A forgotten food graveyard is the sixth mistake. Anyone walking by Elma's kitchen would have thought it was immaculate. Even her seats were at last clear, and counters and her wash basin shone. However, the refrigerator was the one item she feared opening. It appeared immaculate from the outside. On the inside, however, the story was quite different. There was a jar of pickles with a fading label behind the milk, far past its best. She had preserved a casserole years ago as a precaution, and it was now encased in frost and freezer burn in the freezer, hidden beneath fresher bag. Half-used sauces she'd forgotten about, salad dressings well past their expiration dates, and condiment bottles with only a tablespoon remaining, all sat quietly taking up space. I refer to this as the food graveyard. There's one in every kitchen. Things end up out of sight and out of mind when they are shoved to the back of the refrigerator or freezer. They do more than simply fill shelves over time. They convey a subliminal message of disregard. Even with immaculate kitchen surfaces, opening a refrigerator like that makes the entire space feel stale, as if there is concealed junk everywhere. It was frustrating for Elma. She put a lot of effort into maintaining a fresh kitchen. Nevertheless, she felt as though she was looking at waste and disarray every time she opened the refrigerator. The pivotal moment occurred when Elma made the decision to reset her refrigerator in the same manner as she had her pantry. After taking everything out, she arranged it on the counter and confronted the reality. Half of it was either forgotten, freezer burnt, or expired. It was difficult tossing it. She was raised with the waste, not want, not mentality, like many seniors. But she understood that preserving food that had gone bad wasn't a way to honor her history or save money. It was robbing her of her present tranquilly. She established a new rule, the toe test, to prevent relapsing into the same trap. Items had to be utilized right away or thrown away if she hadn't touched them in 14 days. This straightforward rule changed her refrigerator. The shelves had breathing room all of a sudden. At a glance, she could see everything. Months later, meal planning became simpler, and nothing awaited her in the back. This is more important than beauty, especially for seniors. Foods that are forgotten might cause odors, attract bugs, or even be harmful to your health. There is more to a clear refrigerator than meets the eye. It's about energy, safety, and the honor of residing in a house that uplifts rather than depresses you. This is your challenge, then. Today, open your refrigerator. What is the most peculiar item you have found again? Was it a frozen dinner that became an ice sculpture? A container of leftovers you intended to devour? Or a jar of jam from years ago? Post it in the comments section. There are many others who have made the same admission. Additionally, stay put, because the last error is the most difficult. It has nothing to do with food or clutter. It's about guilt and how it subtly affects the atmosphere in our kitchens. The inherited burden is the seventh mistake. The heir has finally returned to Elma's kitchen. The wash basin no longer appeared disorganized. Her counters were exposed. There was less weight in the pantry, and neglected artifacts were no longer hidden in the refrigerator. Her cabinets, however, were the one component of her kitchen that continued to bear a silent burden. There were boxes within that she hardly ever opened, but she knew exactly what was inside. The old china set her mother had. She had inherited the serving dishes, teacups, and fragile plates years before. Not even on vacation did she utilize them. She was concerned that they would crack or chip, and they didn't fit her style. But shame swept up like a wave whenever she considered letting them go. What was she going to do with something her mother had cherished? This explains why inheriting things is such a burdensome task. They are more than just things. They bear emotion, responsibility, and memory. The concept of donating or throwing away family relics feels almost like betrayal to elders like Elma, who grew up in a generation that held them in high regard. However, maintaining things that are seldom used results in the loss of personal space and mental tranquility due to guilt. Elma was not enjoying the china. Sitting in a box wasn't a way to honor her mother's memories. It was just taking up room, and each time she opened the cupboard, it whispered reminders. Alma's realization that she didn't have to maintain everything in order to honor her mother was the turning point. She placed it in a visible location after carefully selecting one serving dish, the one her mother always used to bring out Sunday pot roast. She gave the remainder to a nearby shelter that fed women and children. The china was no longer a burden. Someone else benefited from it. Furthermore, Alma didn't feel that losing her mother was the result of letting go. In a way that really mattered, it seemed like protecting her love. Since this error has nothing to do with organizing or cleaning, it is extremely emotional. It concerns the struggle between freedom and memory. Guilt-driven holding on to things keeps us bound to the past, which makes the present feel heavy. Elma achieved equilibrium by preserving one significant piece. She respected her past while releasing herself from needless responsibilities. Her cabinets no longer only represented the life she inherited, but also the life she was leading. Think for a moment. What is one item in your kitchen that you are retaining solely out of guilt? Is it a stack of pans, a set of dishes, or perhaps a piece of cookware that is connected to a special someone? Would there be serenity rather than suffering if it were let go? Post it in the comments section. The number of people who bear the same concealed burden may surprise you. And keep in mind that decluttering does not mean discarding love. It's the decision to hold on to the memories that give you life. Today, after fixing every hidden error, Elma felt something she hadn't felt in years as she finally stood in her kitchen. Simple. The hum of unresolved business no longer filled the room. The wash basin corner shined with simplicity after being overloaded with bottles and brushes. Instead of being hidden beneath devices, her counters were wide open. Instead of overpowering her, the pantry shelves drew her in. Even the freezer and refrigerator, which used to be repositories of food that had been neglected, now only contained items that she really used. Most importantly, the crushing guilt of inherited dishes stashed away in crates was no longer a burden in her cabinet. Instead of carrying the burden of yesterday, every place now represented her existence today. Elma felt proud for the first time in a long time. She didn't think twice when her neighbors invited her around for coffee the next time. Unapologetic, she greeted them confidently as she served them steaming mugs in her kitchen. They saw no clutter. They sensed no pandemonium. They observed serenity, order, and warmth. After years of believing she wasn't cleaning enough, Elma came to the realization. Effort was not the issue. It was cluttered. Scrubbing more isn't the key to a really clean kitchen. It's about clearing more intelligently. She gained more than a clean home as a result of that change of viewpoint. She gained joy, dignity, and the ability to live in the now because of it. Perfection was not the goal of this change. It had to do with purpose. Elma developed a kitchen that supported her life today rather than reminding her of unfinished duties by letting go of things that no longer served her. And for all the seniors who are watching, there is a message. You should feel lighter, not heavier, in your home. It is not a punishment to declutter. You offer it to yourself as a gift, a method to respect your time, your vitality, and the memories that are most important. This is where you enter the picture. Continue if Alma's story strikes a chord with you. Examine your own kitchen and determine which unseen flaws are depriving you of the peace you deserve. Then tell others about your experience, since it can encourage others to take the initial step. Remember the power of the hype button as well. This message gets stronger with each hype, demonstrating to YouTube that seniors' opinions are too important to ignore. Each of the 3 free hypes you receive each week conveys to the world how important our stories are. So, promote this video immediately. Click like, subscribe, and then leave a comment with your own decluttering triumph. We're doing more than just cleaning kitchens together. We're starting a movement where elder voices are heard, and our houses are transformed into symbols of power, peace, and pride.